I'd like to read to you an article from the July issue of the Christian Womanhood magazine. It's by Rena Fish, who is the lady that helps us the most make sure that we don't have a bunch of errors in our magazine. I know we've had some. I'm sure some of you have seen them. And I know I've caught some later on after it's been published. But on the whole, I think we keep a pretty clean magazine. It's mostly because of the efforts of Rena Fish, the copy editor of Christian Womanhood. She writes about rabies. During my growing up years, our family regularly mowed the lawn of our church property. We each had our own push mower, and we conquered the grass as a team. One sunny day, my brother and I had finished our mowing, but my parents were doing some additional work around the property. My brother and I were playing in the front yard of the church when I spied a small kitten near the road. Always the animal lover, I ran to rescue the small animal. Scooping it into my arms, I felt the small animal begin to struggle. I held on tightly because I hoped to convince my parents to allow me to bring the kitten home as a pet. The kitten, however, had other ideas. Finally, in desperation, the frightened kitten clawed frantically and attempted to sink its teeth into my arm. My mother came around the corner of the building just as the kitten jumped to the ground. I stood holding my slightly wounded arm, and the kitten began to slowly walk away, wobbling from side to side. My mother took one look at the disoriented kitten and quickly asked if I had been bitten. I don't know, I said. It happened so fast that I don't know if it bit me or just scratched me. We did take the kitten with us that day straight to the veterinarian's office. We had to make sure the kitten did not have rabies. I had heard stories of animals foaming at the mouth, biting unsuspecting victims. I had also heard that the only cure was a series of very painful shots, and I hated shots. The veterinary simply shook his head at the bedraggled kitten. He told us that usually he would keep the animal for observation to see if any other signs of rabies appeared, but he was sure that this kitten would not survive long enough for him to use this method. My heart hurt when I learned that the kitten would have to be put to sleep in order for a major medical center to check it for rabies and then let us know the results. The next morning, we picked up the kitten's frozen head from the vet's office and drove an hour and a half to drop it off at the medical center. For what seemed like an eternity, I think it actually was only a day or two, we waited for the results. For the first time in my short life, I faced the fear of dying or, at best, severe pain. I can remember my childish conversations with God as I called out to him in fear. I made a decision at that time in my life that I would trust God. Psalm 56:3 reminds us, "What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee." My family and I were grateful to learn that rabies was not the diagnosis for that kitten. Severe brain damage had caused the symptoms that we observed likely caused when the kitten had landed on its head after being thrown from a moving vehicle. I rejoiced that God had protected me that day. However, throughout my childhood, fear would rear its ugly head, and I would dread the appearance of a rabid animal when I would have to go out in the dark to feed my pet rabbit in the back of my yard. Each trip in the dark caused me to call out to God and compelled me to trust him once again. Throughout life's fears change, and adult fears become even more terrifying. However wonderful to know that our trust is a never-changing God who is worthy of our trust, for whatever he decides to place in our lives. For I am the Lord, I change not. Malachi 3:6a. Isn't that wonderful reminder about overcoming fear and realizing that God is always there and wants to help you with all your fears and troubles. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice.